The Bundesliga has got something of a star performing in it at the moment. Omar Marmoush. The question at the top of this OTC was, is he the best player in the Bundesliga at the moment, Andy? But I suppose we could start off by you giving us your assessment of how good this fella is.
Well, it seems an extraordinary question to ask, doesn't it? Because we're talking about a player who, A, doesn't play for Bayern Munich, plays for Eintracht Frankfurt, B, is not Harry Kane, C, doesn't even play for Dortmund. You know, there are so many aspects to this of why it's extraordinary for us to be discussing a player who has come out of left field to a certain extent, because he's been in the Bundesliga for a while, Marmoush. He was at Wolfsburg, looked pretty good there, promising, but nothing compared to what he is now. And he was good last season. He's exploded into something else this season at the age of 25. He looks absolutely unstoppable. Goal scorer, assister, 13 goals and 7 assists after his 2 against Heidenheim at the weekend. And poor old Heidenheim, who are having a rough old trot at the moment. The last thing they needed is to face him. And he's a player who's developed so much that, I think the only player that Bayern have really looked vulnerable against this season, give or take that brilliant goal by Jamie Gittins last weekend, is Marmoush. A game in which it was a 3-3 draw about a month ago between Eintracht Frankfurt and Bayern in Frankfurt, where Marmoush really significantly influenced the result, because he scores, he takes Bayern to bits at moments in a game that Bayern totally dominated, really. And remember, Eintracht Frankfurt are the second place team in the table at the moment. So much of that is to do with Marmoush. They just didn't have an answer to him. Now, it's been suggested next summer that Bayern, in their big spending ways of recent years, might go for Florian Wirtz and Marmoush. Can I just say, first off, that would not be great for the Bundesliga in terms of you're talking about the 2 best players in the division. You know, the only other guy who enters the conversation for me at the moment is Florian Wirtz. But Marmoush is unstoppable. Great dribbler, intuitive passer, fast, explosive finisher. It's not at all surprising that a lot of Premier League clubs have been linked to him. And I think part of it as well is the fact that is the slight sense that, okay, could maybe this be building into Egypt having, because he's Egyptian, building into having an eventual Mo Salah successor. Mo Salah's getting asked about him all the time now, and Salah's had to say, look, let's take a bit of the pressure off him. Let's not compare him to me. Let's just enjoy what he's doing. But he's an enormous asset for Egypt going forward. I think what this really underlines more than anything else, when we said that, you know, he was a player of some promise who's exploded into this absolute superstar, and we've talked about it before on OTC this season, Eintracht Frankfurt are so good at developing players.
Have you had a look at him yourself at all, Nicky?
Probably not as detailed a look as Andy has, but I've certainly watched some of the greatest hits that have been happening in the last week. So in that goal he scored against was it Heidenheim the weekend, the outside of the boot flick to beat his man and then run clear was absolutely outrageous.
That defender must be completely traumatised.
But you do love an outside of the boot, don't you? Everybody loves it.
Yeah,
you know?
It's the way he draws him in and then makes the touch, isn't it?
Yeah. The touch and acceleration are just sensational. I feel slightly sorry for him for all the same reasons that you were just saying about, I think Salah is feeling sorry for him. He's not even... they're both forwards, they're both fast, but I'm not sure that he's exactly a Mo Salah clone. So to immediately lump him together as, this is the next is...
There's something more physical about him, actually.
Exactly,
isn't
yeah.
there?
Fair enough. However, Liverpool are one of the clubs that have got their eye on him amongst several other clubs. So it begs a question... which club would he be a perfect fit for?
Well, I don't think Liverpool, because obviously you've got the weight of replacing, you know, if not the best Egyptian player of all time, pretty close, who's been Liverpool's best player of recent years. because it's hard to imagine them in the same team, especially with all the other attacking talent that Liverpool have. And we'll come back to this in a minute. Eintracht will charge a lot for him. This is not a cheap signing by any stretch of the imagination. So when we look at Spurs, Newcastle, I think it improved both of those. Where are they going to find the money for him? I think we're looking at 100 million, maybe. Certainly in that direction, 100 million euros at least. And maybe you're listening to this and thinking, is this achievable? I think if you're Eintracht Frankfurt, it is achievable. We talked about them developing players, Dotun, in recent times. Randal Kolo Muani goes there on a free transfer. They sell him a year later to PSG for 100 million euros because not only have they scouted very well, but they've realised that they can work on him and turn him into something brilliant. Now, as I said before, with Kolo Muani, it wasn't just the goals, the assists. I think what Eintracht allowed him to platform so well is his football intelligence. Mm-hmm. And that catapulted him into the France team. And to me, that's why he's dreadfully wasted at PSG at the moment, because the way that he clicked with Mario Götze really underlined what a smart player he is. And I think providing the right environment, you look at all the other players that they've developed down the years. Luka Jovic, Sebastian Aller, who got a real wind behind his career there. William Pacho, who's also gone off to PSG, the centre-back. And Eintracht have needed to do this. Of all the clubs that took a beating during COVID, they suffered one of the worst financial losses, really. And the transfer revenue that they've got in for these players in recent years has helped them recover. Now, they've still got a decent-sized debt of probably about 65 million euros, but it's serviceable because they can produce players. And they have been looking, since before this season even started, they had an idea. Their foresight is such under Markus Krösche, the sporting director. They said to themselves at the start of the season, right, okay, our next two big sales are going to be Marmoush and Hugo Larsson, the midfielder. And so they're going into the season thinking these guys are going to have absolutely stellar seasons, and then we're going to punt them at the end. If you're talking about Eintracht getting back on a really good financial footing, if they can sell one of those a year, let alone two, and get in the Champions League, and like I said, they're in second place at the moment.
How do the Ultras feel about that?
What about selling players?
Yeah, starting the season with a player in mind, putting the player in the shop window of the season, so to speak.
It's just a reality if you're not buying, isn't it? I mean, it's a reality for Dortmund. And I think the Dortmund comparison is quite interesting because what they're doing at the moment is something that we think that Dortmund are really good at. But Dortmund have come further away from. You look at some of the more experienced players they've bought. They bought Pascal Gross. They spent a significant amount of money on him at 33 years old last summer. You go back a little bit before that, and the club decide to extend the contract of Emre Can rather than buy in Edson Alvarez, who thought he was going there, and in the last minute from Ajax, and in the last minute they said, okay, yeah, we're not going to take you, and he ends up going to West Ham instead. So I think if you're trying to close the gap, not just with Bayern, but if you're Eintracht Frankfurt, to close the gap with Dortmund, Leipzig, Leverkusen, those sort of teams, to get in front of a team like Borussia Mönchengladbach, for example, you have to be smart. And they have managed that very well in the last 3 years or so.